Hello and welcome. My name is Sabrina. I am your host, Keep Your Hand in Your Skirt podcast. Today's topic is about shadow work, dealing with deep pain, trauma, patterns. Why? To heal, to change, to transform. We are alchemists. Can we change, transition, transform those painful, wounded pieces of who we are? Can we evolve? Can we become more whole? WHOLE. I want to talk about the past 6 weeks have been, what has your past 6 weeks been? Apparently Venus was in retrograde for 6 weeks. I personally have been deep inside some intense, emotional, painful situations. I buried both of my parents. I witnessed and saw a lot of family patterns. I became aware on a deeper level many of the mental health issues inside my bloodline. I have someone I love deeply that talked about suicide. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. Why is it important to deal with the shadow work or the pain work or the uncomfortable emotions? Well, if we don't deal with them, they just resurface again. And what I found is I can deal with certain things and then I think, okay, I'm done. Like, okay, I did that, done with that. But then months later, years later, that same topic returns, that same wound comes back in. But what I've noticed is when it comes back in with more awareness, with more information in order for a deeper level or layer of healing can happen. I have, most of us, especially, they say, I don't know if this is true, I just can tell you my story. They say most of us who are what they call lightworkers, star seeds, renegades, pioneer, they say most of us, in order to really be a big contribution to hold space for others, is we intentionally agreed to have very challenging, difficult, trauma-filled beginnings or experiences. Why? What would be the benefit of having a trauma? Well, apparently, when you've had trauma, when you've personally been a victim or abused, then your compassion, your awareness, your ability to really feel someone else's pain, because you too have had that pain, so you know firsthand the difficulty of that. One thing that showed up for me that I was not anticipating in this past 6 weeks is revisiting sexual trauma. I am aware I got introduced to sex when I was 5. I was aware that it was something that reoccurred on and off until I was 19. I knew it, right? I've always known it. But I was actually telling the story to someone. I was telling the story from beginning to end. And it was the first time. So even though I've told the story, I know the story. I'm not, they say you suppress or you hide or you delete some of those memories because it's too painful to hold. Like, I knew the story. But when I went to share the story from beginning to end, a new awareness showed up. And that awareness was, there was no one from age 5 to age, actually, I even brought it up again when I was 27, looking for support, and I was not seen, I was not acknowledged, the abuse was never recognized. No adult no caregiver from the age of 5, like, right? Because I kept revisiting it, right? At 5, like, right? At 9, I talked again and I was told, don't ruin the family vacation. Don't tell your father, right? So again, the primary caregiver, my mother at the time, told my sister and I, don't talk about it. Don't upset your father. So I was 9. And now that I'm like, wow, I was 9, my sister was 11. And then again, right, when it was older and other things happened to me, it didn't even occur to me to reach out to an adult to get support or help. I'm like, oh, this is just what happens. I knew it happened. I knew no one talked about it. I just pretended, and it seemed normal. It's always seemed, I knew it wasn't normal. Obviously, I've gone and gotten help because I knew it wasn't normal. But when I was telling the story to this person from beginning to end, I got on a new level. Like, oh my gosh, my 5-year-old self didn't get help. My 9-year-old self didn't get help. My 13-year-old self didn't get help. My 19-year-old self didn't get help. My 27-year-old self didn't get help or supported or acknowledged. No, like, I'm sorry that you went through that on my watch. Nothing, right? Like, wow. And it gave me so much compassion. It gave me so much kindness for how wounded or how deep the wounds are. And it makes total sense to realize, like, yes, you keep attracting, you keep manifesting connections, relationships where you're just hoping this time someone will see you, someone will acknowledge you. And so you attract those people that can't acknowledge you because that's what you're familiar with. That's all you know. You don't gravitate towards those that will support you in your healing. Well, obviously you do to some degree, right? Like, obviously I have several people that I can share my story with that are supportive, that are understanding. Right? So, but it's layered, it's layered, it's layered, it's layered, it's layered. And I have a new sense of kindness for myself. I have a new sense of compassion for myself and what I experienced, right? And obviously I would imagine, right, this is ancestor issues, right? I'm sure my grandparents, I'm sure my great-great-grandparents, I am sure these traumas of different types of traumas, of abuse, of addictions, right? I'm sure it's been for a long time. Why? Because, we are unconscious, because we don't know how to deal with things. Nobody gave my grandparents the tools, so nobody gave my parents the tools. Like, I passed on toxic, unhealthy behaviors to my children. I thought I was mindful. Unintentionally, I passed it on. So I'm not saying that the caregivers, that the guardians didn't love. But when you don't know how to love, when you don't have a healthy mentor of what 5D love looks like, unfortunately, you share separation love, you share right, wrong love, you share denial, dismiss, hide, pretend, ignore, distract, don't talk about it love. It's still love, but it's not love where healthy conversations can be had. It's not love where you're held and you're supported and you're seen. And you get to hear that apology. You get to hear, I'm so sorry this happened to you on my watch. I'm so sorry I didn't have the tools to help you. I thought by not talking about it and pretending like it didn't happen, like that was the best thing to do, right? Like that being able to talk about it, being able to, like, let's talk about the pink elephant in the room, the polka dotted elephant that sits in this room that we all pretend we can't see. Well, not all of us, right? Many of us are talking about it. Many of us are doing our own inner work to heal, to let our inner child know, I got you. I can self-protect. I can hold you. So this last 6 weeks, I never anticipated all of the twists and turns and unexpected things that have shown up. And I've dealt with it. Like, right, I'm feeling it, I'm talking about it, I'm discussing it, which is beautiful, beautiful therapy, as well as I feel exhausted from doing shadow work. I am so ready to retire from the third dimension, right? I am so ready to retire authentically because I know how to change my vibe, right? I'm a master at changing my vibe, but I no longer change my vibe and change my vibration at my own expense, meaning like I no longer camouflage my shifting my vibe. Like, right, I'm at that place, I'm at that awareness that when my vibration shifts, I want it to be an organic shift, not a faking it, a forcing it, a pretending it, a hiding from it, right? And then as well as I'm tired, I'm tired of shadow work, right? So I was listening to YouTube the other day, and they were talking about those of us who have had a difficult life. We have had everybody's, right? We are all imperfect. Remember the perfectionism program, right? We are all imperfect. We have all had hurt. We have all had pain. We have all experienced disappointments and discomforts. That's just part of our life. In this video, they were really talking about those of us who are vulnerable enough to feel it, to discuss it, to do the work, to look at it, to declare it, to acknowledge it. Those of us with this much vulnerability, it really is a gift and a contribution to the future. It really is bringing heaven on earth, because when we can bring heaven on earth, when we intentionally bring in that 5D consciousness to this earth, we help others lose the shame of their stories, lose the guilt of your story, lose the self-judgment of your story, lose the judgment of others from your story. And the way that all happens is when we can be vulnerable enough, be real enough, be honest enough to do the work. I'm not saying you have to go and announce your story. What I've learned about self-protection is, and Brene Brown has a great book about not everyone deserves to hear your story. So you have to protect your heart. You have to protect your inner child. And not everyone deserves to hear your story. So choose to share your story in a place that you feel safe, with people that you feel safe, if you want to share it at all. Maybe you just process with your own writing, with your own videoing. Something magical happens when you make videos. For me, I'm a self-projector, a 2/4 self-projector in human design. And what that means is when I verbally talk out loud, I get to figure out what it is I think and feel. So not everyone's going to want to make videos or audios to share with the world, but you might love making your own diary videos. Sit in front of your camera. You don't have to share it with anyone. You don't have to tell anyone you did it. You can delete it right after you've done it, but try. You might be somebody that will really benefit from your own video diary. Some people really benefit from a written diary. We all have different ways of processing, different ways of coping, different ways of growing and evolving. So whatever way works for you. Maybe you're the type you just go in nature and you just cry in nature and you allow nature to support you. We are so supported But we have to pick the right elements, right? We have to pick the right variables to share our stories with. And our stories, it might just be what you tell your higher self or your guides or your angels. It might be what you share with your pets, with nature. Whatever it is, we are supported. We are supported. And often, I know for myself, I can feel so alone. I can feel so alone. And many of us do feel alone. We do feel, right? Society says when you're out in public, right? If you don't want to be a negative Nelly, you're not like saying woe is me stories, right? Like that gets old, having people in your life that like love your woe is me story. So you intentionally try not to be a woe is me person. But then sometimes you are fake. Sometimes you're wanting to be optimistic leads you to be a fake optimist. It leads you to be you're pretending. And for those of us who have had trauma, fawning, that is what fawning is. Fawning is, oh, hey, I just love you so much, or you're so great, you're so amazing. Fawning is you go out of your way to make everyone else feel really comfortable. Why? Because you don't feel safe. You don't feel safe, and a protection is fawning, pretending, like trying to keep the other person happy so they don't get mad, they don't explode, they don't rip you to pieces, right? They don't reject you, they don't abandon you. The four signs of PTSD, four signs of trauma are the fight, the flight, the fawn, and what's the other one? Freeze, and the freezing, right? So just by having these words, by having these conversations, by being vulnerable enough with ourselves, just being vulnerable enough with yourself, maybe that's the only step you want to take right now. But I just want to honor all of us. I want to honor myself and everything that I've been through the last 6 weeks. I want to honor you and whatever is going on in your world. And I do, as painful as it has been, I do sincerely believe new patterns are here. I do sincerely believe heaven on earth is an option. And we can authentically have heaven on earth from an authentic, transparent, organic way when we can be vulnerable enough with ourselves to admit and acknowledge our pain, our wounds, our trauma. So Venus has left retrograde. I don't know if that Venus was responsible for all this. I'm not sure exactly. Something, planet, something. But I am looking forward to some space. I am looking forward to a season, a cycle of peace, of ease, of grace. And that is my intention. That is what I am looking for. Thanks for listening.